No one expected it to last 2 full hours. Not the producers, not the audience in the studio, and certainly not the fans watching from home. What was supposed to be a routine television appearance turned into one of the most explosive confessions of Can Yaman's career, a moment that instantly set social media on fire. From the very beginning, something felt different. Can didn't arrive with his usual confident smile or carefully rehearsed answers. Instead, he looked tense, almost guarded. His posture was stiff, his eyes restless. Even the host sensed it. After a few harmless questions about upcoming projects and life in Italy, the conversation suddenly shifted, straight into dangerous territory. Sara Bluma. The name hung in the air like a loaded weapon. For a brief moment, Can said nothing. The studio fell silent. Cameras zoomed in, waiting for the reaction everyone feared or hoped for. And then, unexpectedly, he exhaled slowly and nodded. "People deserve the truth," he said. That single sentence changed everything. What followed was not a polished PR statement, but a raw, unfiltered confession. Can admitted that the breakup with Sara had not been as mutual or peaceful as the public had been led to believe. Behind closed doors, emotions had been high. Words had been said that could not be taken back. Trust, he hinted, had been damaged long before the final decision. Then came the moment that truly shocked everyone. The infamous photo. The image that had gone viral weeks earlier, shared, dissected, and weaponized across social media, was finally addressed directly. Can leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. "That photo wasn't innocent," he said. "It wasn't accidental." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. According to Can, the photo was posted during a moment of deep emotional conflict. He described it as a calculated move. Not necessarily planned for weeks, but driven by anger, hurt, and a desire to provoke a reaction. It was revenge, he admitted. Pure revenge. The words hit like a punch. For months, fans had argued endlessly online. Some defended Sara fiercely, others accused her of manipulation. Until that night, everything had been speculation. But hearing it directly from Can himself gave the story an entirely new weight. He didn't deny his own mistakes. In fact, he was brutally honest about them. He spoke about emotional distance, long periods of silence, and misunderstandings that slowly poisoned the relationship. Fame, constant travel, and public pressure had turned simple disagreements into permanent fractures. "There are things you don't realize until it's already over," he said quietly. As the minutes passed, it became clear this was not an attack, but a confession fueled by exhaustion. Can wasn't trying to destroy Sara's image, he was trying to explain his own pain. He admitted that seeing the photo had hurt him deeply, not because of jealousy, but because it felt like a deliberate attempt to reopen wounds that had barely begun to heal. The host attempted to move on, sensing the intensity of the moment, but Can wasn't finished. "There's a lot people don't know," he added. "And maybe, they're not ready to hear it yet." Those final words sent a chill through the studio. If this was only the beginning, everyone knew one thing for certain. The full truth had not yet come out. And the most shocking revelations were still to come. As Can Yaman's confession continued, the atmosphere inside the studio grew heavier by the minute. What had started as a revelation quickly transformed into something far deeper, a rare glimpse behind the carefully curated images that celebrities are expected to maintain at all costs. Can revealed that the problems in his relationship with Sara Bluma didn't begin with a scandal or a single argument. They began quietly. Subtly. Almost invisibly. "It starts with distance," he explained. "Not physical distance. Emotional distance." According to him, months before the breakup, communication had already begun to break down. Messages went unanswered. Calls became shorter. Important conversations were postponed for later, a later that never came. The pressure of living under constant public scrutiny only made things worse. Every gesture was interpreted, every silence questioned. Then came the jealousy rumors. Can addressed them carefully, choosing his words with precision. He denied being controlling but admitted that trust issues had emerged on both sides. The entertainment world, he said, is full of misunderstandings, half-truths, and people eager to interfere. When too many voices enter your relationship, he said, you stop hearing each other. One of the most striking moments of the interview came when Can described the night he realized things were truly over. It wasn't during a fight. It wasn't during a dramatic breakup conversation. It was during a moment of silence. I sent a message, he recalled. Something honest. Something real. And there was no reply. That silence, he said, hurt more than any argument ever could. The studio audience listened in absolute stillness as he explained how the now famous photo appeared online just days later. From his perspective, the timing was no coincidence. He described the moment he saw it for the first time, late at night, alone, scrolling through his phone. I understood immediately what it was meant to do, he said. It wasn't about happiness. It was about reaction. Yet, despite his harsh honesty, Can refused to paint Sara as a villain. He acknowledged that emotions after a breakup can push people to act impulsively. When you're hurt, he admitted, you want the other person to feel it too. That sentence resonated deeply with viewers. As the interview progressed, insiders' whispers suddenly began to make sense. For weeks, rumors had circulated about tension, arguments, and unresolved resentment. Now, piece by piece, the puzzle was finally coming together. Can also addressed why he had stayed silent for so long. His answer surprised many. Because speaking too early would have destroyed everything, he said. Including the respect that was left. But silence, as he admitted, came with a price. Speculation filled the gap. Headlines grew more aggressive. Fans took sides. And the story spiraled far beyond what either of them could control. By the end of the second hour, it was clear that Can wasn't just talking about a breakup. He was talking about emotional burnout, about reaching a point where love, anger, and disappointment blur into something unrecognizable. This wasn't a game, he concluded. And it definitely wasn't fake. The camera cut to the host, visibly shaken. Because if what Can had just revealed was true, then the public narrative had only scratched the surface. And the most sensitive part of the story, the part involving the call that was never returned, was still waiting to be told. As the interview reached its most delicate moment, the tone shifted completely. The confident actor, accustomed to facing cameras and crowds, suddenly seemed exposed in a way viewers had never seen before. This was no longer about rumors or public perception. This was about a single phone call, one that never came back. Can paused before speaking, as if weighing whether the words were worth the consequences. Then he nodded, almost to himself. There was a call, he said quietly. And it changed everything. According to Can, the call happened in the final days before the breakup became official. By that point, tensions were already high, and communication had become fragile. But that night, something felt different. Urgent. Necessary. I didn't call to argue, he explained. I called because I wanted to fix things. The line rang. Once. Twice. Then went to voicemail. At first, he didn't panic. He assumed she was busy, or asleep, or simply unavailable. But as the hours passed and no response came, no message, no missed call notification, a sense of dread began to grow. I stayed awake all night, he admitted. Waiting. The studio was silent. Can described replaying the relationship in his mind, searching for the moment where everything had started to slip away. He questioned his own choices, his silences, his distance. He wondered whether pride had prevented both of them from saying what truly mattered. By morning, there was still nothing. That's when I understood, he said. Not that it was over, but that something had broken. Days later, the photo appeared online. For Can, the connection between the two moments was impossible to ignore. He didn't claim the call was intentionally ignored, but he admitted that the timing felt cruel. "When you don't answer a call," he said, "you're also sending a message." The host asked whether he tried again. Can nodded. "I did. But not the same way." Instead of calling repeatedly, he chose silence, a decision he now admits he regrets. Pride stepped in. Fear followed. And what could have been a conversation turned into a permanent distance. "Sometimes," he said, "we protect ourselves so much that we lose what we're trying to save." The audience could feel the weight of those words. He also addressed the public reaction that followed. Fans demanded answers. Media outlets speculated endlessly. Every gesture, every post, every absence became evidence for new theories. But behind the headlines, Can described a man grappling with loss. Not just of a relationship, but of a future he had imagined differently. "I didn't lose a person," he said softly. "I lost the version of life I believed in." As the interview neared its end, the host asked the question everyone had been waiting for: if he could go back, would he do anything differently? Can didn't hesitate. "I would answer the phone," he said. "Even if it hurt." That single sentence echoed far beyond the studio. Because sometimes, it's not betrayal or anger that ends a love, but silence. And as the credits rolled, viewers knew one thing was certain: the story between Can Yaman and Sara was far more fragile, more human, and more painful than anyone had ever imagined. The moment the interview ended, everything exploded. Within minutes, clips of Can Yaman's words were circulating across social media platforms, translated into multiple languages, dissected frame by frame, and reposted by major gossip pages. Pure revenge became the phrase of the night: bold, brutal, and impossible to ignore. Italian, Turkish, and international media outlets rushed to rewrite their narratives. For months, the story had been told in fragments. Carefully chosen photos. Ambiguous captions. Anonymous sources close to the couple. But now, for the first time, one side had spoken openly, and the impact was immediate. Insiders described the atmosphere behind the scenes as chaotic. Can's team reportedly hadn't expected him to go that far. While they were aware he planned to address the breakup, the direct acknowledgement of the photo as an act of revenge caught even his closest advisors off guard. Phones started ringing. Emergency meetings were scheduled. Damage control plans were drafted in real time. But the damage, or the truth, was already out. What surprised many observers was the public reaction. Instead of turning against Can, a large portion of viewers expressed empathy. His vulnerability, his visible hesitation, and the absence of bitterness in his tone shifted the conversation. "He didn't accuse," one commentator noted. "He confessed." At the same time, attention quickly turned toward Sara. Her silence became the loudest sound in the room. No posts. No statements. No cryptic messages. Fans flooded her accounts with questions, demands, and emotional pleas. Some defended her fiercely, arguing that heartbreak can push anyone to act impulsively. Others accused her of manipulating the narrative through imagery rather than words. Sources close to Sara claimed she was deeply shaken by the interview. According to whispers from her inner circle, she hadn't anticipated such a direct confrontation, especially not in a live, 2-hour broadcast watched by millions. The photo, they insisted, had been misunderstood. Emotions had been raw. Intentions blurred by pain. But even among those sources, one detail stood out. The call. The unanswered call mentioned by Can reportedly reopened old wounds. Insiders suggested that it wasn't ignored out of cruelty, but out of fear of reopening a conversation that neither of them felt ready to face. Still, the public wasn't satisfied with half answers. Entertainment shows dedicated entire segments to analyzing body language from the interview. Was Can holding back tears? Did his voice shake at specific moments? Why did he pause before mentioning the call? Every detail became evidence. Meanwhile, Can himself disappeared from public view. No follow-up interviews. No social media reactions. No clarifications. His silence after the confession felt intentional, as if he had said everything he needed to say, and now refused to add anything more. "That was my truth," he reportedly told a close friend. "The rest isn't mine to control." Behind the scenes, however, tension remained high. Some insiders hinted that Sara was considering speaking out, not necessarily to deny Can's words, but to explain her own emotional state at the time. Others believed she would remain silent, letting the storm pass rather than feeding it further. One thing was clear: the story was far from over. Because confessions don't end stories, they change them. And with emotions still raw, unanswered questions still hanging in the air, and one final truth yet to be spoken, everyone knew the most decisive chapter had not been written yet. Not publicly. Not privately. And not without consequences. In the days that followed the confession, the noise slowly began to fade, but the impact did not. Headlines moved on, trending topics shifted, yet something had fundamentally changed. For the first time, the story of Can Yaman and Sara Bluma was no longer driven by speculation, but by emotion laid bare. And that made all the difference. According to people close to Can, the confession wasn't planned as a career move or a calculated media moment. It was, instead, the result of emotional exhaustion. Months of silence, misinterpretation, and bottled-up regret had finally reached a breaking point. He didn't want to win, one insider revealed. He wanted to breathe. Privately, Can admitted that speaking out came with consequences he fully accepted. He knew his words would reopen wounds, for himself and for Sara. But what mattered most to him was ending the cycle of half-truths. For once, he reportedly said, "I wanted the story to sound human." Meanwhile, Sara's silence continued. But this time, it felt different. Sources suggested she had watched the interview more than once. Not out of anger, but out of recognition. The version of Can on screen wasn't the distant figure she had known at the end, but the man she once loved. Vulnerable. Honest. Flawed. Friends close to her hinted that the photo, the one that ignited everything, was never meant to become a public weapon. It was an emotional reaction, born from pain and a feeling of being replaced in his life long before the breakup was official. When you feel invisible, one source explained, you do something to be seen. That didn't erase the hurt. But it reframed it. For the first time, fans began to see two people trapped in the same story, not enemies, not manipulators, but two individuals who failed to communicate when it mattered most. The unanswered call became the symbol of it all. Not a scandal. Not betrayal. But a missed moment. And perhaps the most heartbreaking truth of all. As for reconciliation, those close to both sides remained cautious. There were no secret meetings, no dramatic reunions, no late-night airport sightings. Just distance. Reflection. And unresolved emotion. But something unexpected happened. The anger softened. Can, who once avoided speaking about the relationship entirely, reportedly told friends that he no longer felt the need to explain himself. And Sara, though still silent publicly, began quietly distancing herself from the chaos surrounding the story. Sometimes, closure doesn't come with a conversation. Sometimes, it comes with understanding. And in this case, the truth didn't reunite them. But it freed them. Freed them from assumptions. Freed them from narratives written by others. Freed them from a love story frozen in its most painful moment. As one industry insider put it, this wasn't the end of a romance. It was the end of pretending. And perhaps that's the most explosive confession of all. Not that there was revenge. But that there was once love, real, fragile, imperfect, and it deserved to be remembered honestly.